I've been looking at Facebook some this weekend, and I'm surprised by all the Easter stuff that was on Facebook, and how people were bragging about the Lord. It's a special time, and it's good to see that social media, the people are using it to bring about the message of what Jesus Christ has done for us. I'm so thankful for what He's done. Maybe somebody this morning, before we get into the message, would just like to stand and give testimony about what the Lord is doing for you in your life right now. Someone? Don't leave me hanging out here. Well, I guess no. Thank you, Bob. Or Mike.
I'm so glad that I got back in the fold with Him, and I know that He rose and He's going to be there one day and take us all home.
Amen. 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 Someone else?
To thank the Lord for His goodness and all that He does. I remember several years back having this dream, and I was looking over the hill. I don't know where it was at, but I just know there was a grave there, a graveyard, and I could see these spirits coming up out of the grave. And you know, God is so good to us. He has a place for us to go to if we just ask Him in our hearts. And I know one day He is coming.
Yes.
He's come to take His people home.
Amen.
And I want to be ready.
Yes.
And I want to be there whenever He's ready to come and take us.
Amen.
And I just praise His name. He's so good to us. I praise Him.
Amen. Amen. He's coming back again, folks. Amen. Call the saints home. It's someone else. Anyone.
I sure like to stand up and say that I'm glad Jesus died on the cross for all of us. And this morning when I got up, my alarm went off, and I stepped out of the bed, and the electric blanket cord wrapped around my legs. I don't know how many times. And I thought, how is that possible? And then I went to the kitchen. I was going to make some coffee, and I spilled coffee. And I thought, you know what, Satan? I'm going to sunrise service. I don't care what you're trying to do.
Amen.
But I'm just glad that Jesus died, and Easter is a special time. And I just ask that you all would pray for me. I guess Austin is in the process of looking at a house and going to be moving out. So my heart's kind of broke, and I just ask you all to pray for me.
Emptiness syndrome.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord. I remember, Connie, my first pastoring, and somebody stood up and said their house was going to be empty, and they was sad about it. I've probably done one of the stupidest things I've ever done. I can't wait for that day, I said. Boy, have I eaten those words over the years. Someone else.
I want to say that I love the Lord. It's good to be here this morning and feel like I'm home. I thank the Lord for saving me and for dying for me. And He didn't have to die for us, but He chose to do so. We owe Him so much for doing that. And I look at that tomb up there because my sister made that tomb. And it brought back so many memories. It just broke my heart, but yet it blessed me too.
Amen.
And to see you still use that tomb that Martin Johnny made. Just pray for all of us. We're still reeling from her death, and I still feel hard from her death. So continue to pray for us.
It's not easy. Don't let anyone tell you it's not either, and don't let anyone ever say get over it and get moving on either, because we move and we do the way the Lord does it for us. Praise the Lord.
What's happened, and pray that God will still answer the prayer that we prayed for years, that this church would be filled.
Amen.
He is alive in my heart and soul. I serve Him every day, and what a blessed privilege it is to be here this morning.
Amen. Good to have you guys, both of you. Praise the Lord. How's oh my goodness, Alan doing?
He's in the hospital right now.
Oh, is he back in the hospital?
So this time he's in there. He had trigger finger, had surgery on him, and it got very infected, and they had to go in there yesterday and operate on it again and clean it out. Yeah, I don't know if anybody has any more problems than he does.
Well, we've been lifting him up in prayer and just telling him we've been praying for him. Any others? I want to share with you from the book of Mark this morning, this sunrise service. Mark chapter 16, verses 1 through 8 is where we're going to be at. It's a new day. We celebrate Easter because of what happened on that new day some 2,000 years ago. I don't know about you, but Easter holds a very special place in my heart. I can remember Easter Sunday morning services, sunrise services way back. In fact, one of the ones I do remember quite well is we got to church, and I think it started snowing before we got to church. But anyhow, by the time services were over, we had a bunch of snow. I can't remember how much. But on Easter sunrise, or on Easter Sunday morning, we had a bad snowstorm, and but it always held a special place in my heart. Two brothers that were getting ready to boil and collar some eggs for Easter was talking, and the older brother said to the younger brother, he says, "I'll give you $1 if you let me break 3 of these eggs on your head." And the younger brother said, "Do you promise to give me that $1?" And he said, the older brother said, "Yeah, I promise to give you the $1 if I break the 3 eggs over your head." And so he was cheerful. He was excited about being able to break these eggs over his younger brother's head. So he took 2 of the eggs, broke them over his brother's head, and then the younger brother was standing there stiff and fearful of the gooey stuff that was probably going to be running down over his face here in a moment. And he was anticipating that 3rd egg, and he asked his older brother, "When is the 3rd egg coming?" The older brother replied, "It's not. That would cost me $1." What's that got to do with the message this morning? Not a thing. But you know, the world sees Easter differently than we do. There is stories about the egg and how it represents, what Christ done for us and things like that. But Easter, my friend, is significant because of what Jesus Christ done for us at Calvary. Easter is significant for us because not only is it what he did for us at Calvary, but the most powerful thing that has ever happened in history took place on that first Easter Sunday morning when he rose from the grave. He is risen. He is risen. And the question is, how significant is Easter for you and me? How should we respond to Easter this Sunday morning? I promised a few months back that I was going to take every opportunity that I was afforded to share what Easter means with people. And I want to look at this passage in Mark this morning and get an account of the resurrection of Jesus Christ and what it means for us this morning. So here we go. Chapter 16, verses 1 through 8. Now when the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices that they might come and anoint him. And very early in the morning, on the first day of the week, they came to the tomb when the sun had risen. And they said among themselves, who will roll away the stone from the door of the tomb for us? Verse 4, but when they looked up, they saw that the stone had been rolled away, for it was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man clothed in long white robes sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go and tell his disciples and Peter. I like that, because who was it that denied Christ 3 times on that early morning as they went to trial? It was Peter. He denied him. And I don't know about you, but it's exciting to see that Jesus remembered Peter even after what he had done. And Peter, that he is going before you into Galilee. There you will see him as he said to you. And so they went out quickly and fled from the tomb, for they trembled and were amazed. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Father, we pray your blessings upon your word this morning. May you just anoint it. May you help us to understand what it has to do with us and for us this morning on this Easter Sunday morning. Lord, we sometimes get to a place from hearing stories over and over again and get complacent, get just used to it, and it's just the story again. But Father, open our hearts and our minds today that we might see this fresh and anew and be excited about what you've done for us. We thank you, we praise you in Christ's name. Amen. Here you have the 3 ladies on their way to the tomb on that Easter Sunday morning, that very first Sunday that Jesus rose from the dead. And these ladies, they were good people. They were with Jesus all through what he went through. I mean, they're the ones that was at the foot of the cross when they were crucifying him. And they are the ones that was with them as they took care of him at the beginning of his death when they first put him in the tomb. But they weren't able to finish the process. The process of preparing the body for burial. The Sabbath was there, and they were not allowed to continue doing what needed to be done to the body of Jesus. And so they had to wait to finish the process of preparing Jesus' body. Faithful. They were faithful. Faithful at the cross, faithful at the burial, and faithful this Easter Sunday morning. But maybe not particularly faith-filled. Because you see, this Easter Sunday morning, they weren't expecting Jesus to be alive. They had heard the stories, they had been with him through his teachings, but they weren't faith-filled enough to know that Jesus was going to raise on the 3rd day. They didn't understand when he said, tear this temple down in 3 days, it will rise again. In fact, they carried the spices for the anointing of Jesus' body. So that tells me, that tells you this morning, they were not expecting to find an empty tomb. They had 2 responses that morning, that first Easter Sunday morning. 2 responses. I don't know if you're battling things in your life right now, and maybe you have some feelings this morning about Easter, but maybe these responses are some of the things that you may be feeling this morning. The first response that they had is that they were worried about the obstacle that they faced. They were worried about the obstacle they were faced. I don't know. On their way to the tomb, they wrestled with the deeply profound and theological question: who is going to remove the stone from the tomb? Who is going to remove this giant stone from the tomb? Now, I can appreciate the dilemma. I can appreciate what they're saying here, and you probably could as well this morning. I mean, this picture of a boulder here this morning where we're seeing in the face of this house, this boulder would be significantly smaller than the boulder that was covering the tomb of Jesus, that was over the mouth of that tomb. But this allows us to see the enormous size of what the boulder, and it allows us to appreciate the lady's question, who will roll away the stone? Now, the nature of a boulder is that they don't move. I mean, that's what boulders are for. They're not to move. They're not supposed to move. That's the point of a boulder. And so it made perfect sense for these ladies to say, who will remove the stone? Perfect sense, that is, if Jesus were actually dead. Not a lot has changed in the 2,000 years since. You know, you hear people today say, I have a huge obstacle that I can't move. How can I be victorious? And that's a good question if Jesus were still in the tomb. Or they say, my marriage is a mess, and how could it ever be made right? And that's a good question. That is, if Jesus were still in the tomb. You hear people say, you know, I'm in bondage to this habit, whether it's drugs, alcohol, pornography, or whatever it might be. How in the world can I break free? And that's a great question. That is, if Jesus was still in the tomb. But this is a brand new day. This is a brand new day, a day that Jesus had started way back in 2,000 years ago, when he rose on that new day, that new Easter morning. He rose from the dead, and that tomb is empty. Jesus is not in that tomb. There is no tombstone that reads 0 to 33 AD, and here lies Jesus of the Nazarene, rest in peace. There's not a tombstone out there that says that. Jesus won the battle. And if he has the power to conquer the worst and the biggest problem of death, he can defeat whatever whatever you and I are faced with today. That worked. There is no obstacle, folks, in my life or in your life that is greater than the death that he has already defeated. He can handle your obstacle this morning. In Matthew 7, verse 7 through 11, it says, ask and it will be given, seek and you will find, knock and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks and finds, and to him who knocks it will be open. Or what man is there among you who, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give you things, or good things, to those who ask them? We've had a heavenly Father that cares about the things we're faced with. And all we need to do is to go to him. We can do that because the grave is empty. Jesus is risen from the dead. There's no marker at his tomb. So their first concern, their first obstacle, was worrying about the tombstone that was over the face of the grave. But there's a second response these ladies had, and that is that they were bewildered about the impossible. When the young man, which we know to be the angel, gave these ladies the good news that Jesus was risen from the dead, and the very fact that he was alive, we see their response. It says in verse 8, trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. Trembling and bewildered. These ladies' bewilderment, or if you will, their astonishment, left them paralyzed and afraid. They heard that Jesus was alive, and even they even believed it, but it left them bewildered. I know what it is to feel bewildered. For some people, the search for Jesus is like searching for an object in an I Spy book. Now, if you're not familiar with them, their pages are contained with pictures of odds and ends and toys and such. And the job is for the reader of the book to locate a set of objects that is listed in a poem on the bottom of the page. Now, I Spy is an award-winning series of books for children, and I Spy combines intriguing for photographs of familiar objects, collections with rich rhymes, riddles, to create visual brain-teasing puzzles that kids can't resist. I love doing those things. I guess I'm a kid at heart, maybe. Anyhow, each time a kid plays I Spy, they discover the clever object associations. They discover how to do wordplay and themes which help them build important learning skills, including reading, problem solving, and even creativity. I don't know, maybe from that description it sounds like these kids could really be Einsteins of today. I mean, it didn't happen for me, but it could happen for others. But what I acquired was a lot of times frustration and bewilderment. Couldn't find the object, and even still today I can't find the windmill in this picture. For the women, the news of the resurrection, that Jesus was alive, and the instructions to go tell other disciples left them bewildered about the impossible. It was a lot to grasp, and they needed something more. Now, quit looking for the windmill. Okay, I know you're still looking for it. They heard the good news. They heard the good news, and they even believed that good news, as I said. But there was one more thing they needed. They needed to meet the Savior. They needed to meet the Savior. Almost without exception, the transformation of the early disciples came when they met the resurrected Jesus. In this picture that we're talking about here in this story, not on the screen, in this story, Mary and the others were bewildered. But in Matthew, the story tells us that what actually happened when Mary encountered Jesus and she went to worship him at his feet when she realized who he was. It changed everything. Yes, in our story this morning, she seen the empty grave. She believed that Jesus was gone, but until she met Jesus, it didn't take hold. Thomas, remember doubting Thomas? I won't believe unless if I touch the wounds myself. I want to put my finger into his side. I won't believe it unless I see that. And we're told that when he seen Jesus and he done that, he cried out, "My Lord and my God." Now, I don't know if it's true. But the reason I say, and I always say it on Easter Sunday morning, so get used to it, but He is risen. Your response is, He is risen indeed. And I just read yesterday on Facebook or somewhere that is an old tradition that is believed that happened when Thomas done this. When Thomas done this, when he was approached with Jesus and he seen him, the traditional story is, He is risen indeed. He is risen indeed. We don't know. I don't know. It's not scriptural. We do know, however, by Scripture, he said, my Lord and my God. When he seen Jesus, it changed his beliefs. I just talked to a good friend last night, and we were talking about believing. And believing, there's a lot of people that believe in Jesus. It's in history books of not just the Christian Bible, but it's in history books. And other people, even in other faiths, believe that Jesus existed, but that he was a prophet or a teacher or whatever. But unless you encounter him on a personal matter, he is just another prophet. But when you encounter him, he changes your life. Thomas doubted, but when he saw it, he changed. Mary, when she seen Jesus, it transformed her. It's not enough, my friend, on this Easter Sunday morning to hear this story again. It's not enough to know what happened at first Easter Sunday morning. What is needed is to meet Jesus, to have an encounter with Jesus Christ. I don't know how many of those posts that I've seen on Facebook have people in services this morning. But if you have encountered Jesus Christ, you'll do everything you can to be in services no matter when the doors of the church are open. He makes a difference in our lives. And the key to life, with its obstacles and in its possibilities, is not to know the Easter story. The key to life and all the things and obstacles and impossibilities that we face each and every day, the key to all of that is to know the Savior. It's not to know enough to know mom and dad or know him or to know grandma and grandpa in their faith. You have to meet the Savior yourself. I can't get to heaven on my mom and dad or grandma and grandpa's skirt tails. I need to have a personal relationship with him. And there is no bewilderment. There's no bewilderment, no confusion when I meet him on a personal level. For some, spiritual things can seem like that I Spy game or a puzzle. Searching and searching for Jesus. His risen presence is right here this Easter weekend. He is here. He is risen. Where 2 or 3 are gathered together in his name, he is with them. He is here this morning. Worried about the obstacles, bewildered about the impossibilities. Life is chaotic sometimes. Let's be truthful. But it doesn't have to be something we have to deal with on our own. The one who can bring perfect peace and power into the lives of us each and every day has been risen from the dead. The stone has been rolled away. The tomb is empty. He is risen, and he can meet you right where you're at today, this Easter Sunday sunrise service. I'm so thankful for the day that he tugged at my heart and I came to know him. I've been through, and I know I'm not alone this morning. Many of us have been through some difficult things in life. Sonny, you just mentioned the grief that you're still carrying. But with Jesus, we can face these things. And we can have victory over these things and get to the next part of our lives because of what Jesus did. You know, the scripture says that they were amazed that Easter Sunday morning. And I'm going to have Chrissy come at this time. And she's gonna do a closing song for us. That is really a special song that she's done before. I'm not sure if she's done it here or not. But Chrissy.
My faithful Father, enduring friend, your tender mercies like a river with no end. It overwhelms me, covers my sin. Each time I come into your presence, I stand in wonder once again. Your grace still amazes me. Your love is still a mystery each day. I fall on my knees, 'cause your grace still amazes me. Your grace still amazes me. Oh, patient Savior, you make me whole. You are the author and the healer of my soul. What can I give you, Lord? What can I say? I know there's no way to repay you, only to offer you my praise. Your grace still amazes me. Your love still a mystery each day. I fall on my knees, 'cause your grace still amazes me. Your grace still amazes me. It's deeper, it's wider, it's stronger, it's higher, it's deeper, it's wider, it's stronger, it's higher. think of the stripes that he did for us. He done that for us, for only us, to help us to know who he is and what he can do and what he has for us. He has a place in store for me and you. Keep him in your heart always. He will bless you. And I give him the praise and the honor and the glory forever. Amen.
Thank you, Chrissy. Now you know why I like that song. Amen. And it's such a blessing to have Christ is risen. You got it, Bob. Christ is risen. Are you amazed by that this morning? Amen. Amen. Let's close in a word of prayer. Father, we thank you today for your love, your mercy, your grace. We thank you for the privilege it is to be here this Easter sunrise service. And Lord, we just are expecting some great things even still this morning as you have us come back together in just a few hours, Lord, that you might be glorified and lifted up in all that you do. We'll give you the praise. Be with us now as we fellowship and have breakfast together. May it nourish and give us the strength that we need. And we thank you for the hands who have prepared it, and pray that you just bless it to the body. In Christ's name we pray. And everyone said, amen. Amen. God bless you. We'll see you here at breakfast.